All right, good morning. It's 9 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for rising with us this morning. I'm Christina Fugate and I'm here with my Ice Miller partner, Alice Kelly. And Alice and I lead our franchise vertical here at the firm, and we're really excited that Erin and Carmen could join us this morning. For those that are new to our Rise webinar series, the purpose is to bring our Ice Miller friends online and to hear their stories, how they got to where they are, and to discuss issues that we're all facing in today's world. So we're really excited to hear about a very interesting topic on cannabis today. And, we certainly want to keep this engaging with everyone listening in. So feel free to use the question and answer box that's on your screen, and we'll keep an eye on that and try to get to all your questions throughout today. So with that, I want to turn it over to Alice to introduce our guest and also talk about a drawing that we're going to have today.
Thanks, Christina. Hi, I'm Alice Kelly. I'm a partner in the IP group in Chicago. And like Christina said, we head up our franchise practice. We also are going to do some polling questions during, during our talk today to keep everyone engaged. And then at the end, we're going to do a drawing. This time, sometimes it's a gift card, but this time we're going to make a donation in the name of our lucky winner to an organization based in Downers Grove called Watts of Love. They distribute solar lights all over the world, really, even domestically in the wake of a lot of hurricanes. But here it's a buy one, get one. So you'll be buying a light to give to somebody, and then you will get one too. So I will pull up the website and show you what you'll be winning. So stick around and hopefully someone will be the lucky winner. So our first question of the Rise, this is our second one, but as always, what do you prefer, coffee, tea, or other in the morning? So use the little buttons in the chat. And Carmen and Erin, I'm going to introduce both of you and then have them each say a few words about themselves, but we'd also like to know your answer to this question. First, we have Carmen Brace from Aclara Research. She provides cannabis insights in the CPG industry. And we also have Erin Alexander, who is Associate General Counsel at Cresco Labs, a big cannabis company here in Chicago. So Carmen, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. Well, great to be here with you, ladies. I appreciate the opportunity and as we close out this very unique year that we're all experiencing. I am Carmen Brace. I am the founder and CEO of Aclara Research. We are a cannabis insights and data products company. So essentially, we provide the insights on why consumers buy these products and the disruption and opportunity that it creates for CPG companies. I started this company after a very long career within consumer packaged goods, working to leverage a lot of these consumer data products to drive growth across the portfolio within my area of responsibility. And my journey with cannabis has been a very unique one. It's taken me to a number of different vantage points that I've never seen within my corporate career. Being an entrepreneur has, of course, its unique challenges, but working within an industry that is not federally legal is always one that provides unique challenges as well. So look forward to talking more about my path within the industry and what insight I can give to others about that are interested within it.
Thanks, Carmen. And Erin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Erin Alexander. I'm Associate General Counsel at Cresco Labs. I handle regulatory, legal matters, licensing matters across all the states where Cresco is operational. We are a vertically integrated multi-state operator. We have operations in 9 different states. We started in Illinois and we're one of the first groups to win licenses here in Illinois. My path to the cannabis industry is somewhat strange. Once upon a time, I was a gaming regulator in Illinois. Obviously, I'm an attorney, and I happen to know some of the people at Cresco Labs, and so was able to sort of work with them prior to actually coming in-house on some license applications. And one of the interesting things about cannabis is the similarities between cannabis and gaming regulated state by state, different regulations in every state that are, somewhat similar but somewhat different. And so, when I took a look at it back in 2016-ish, that was one of the things that drew me to it was the sort of similarity of what I had done relative to sort of what the cannabis regulatory landscape looked like. And thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk more about my path.
That's great, Erin. And it looks like from our polling, we've got a majority of coffee drinkers, and that's me as well. So yay to those coffee drinkers. So, and Erin, thanks for talking about your path into cannabis. And Carmen, I know you've got an interesting path as well. How did you get in the industry?
Well, after it wasn't intentional. I think most of us have that same that in common. But after a 20+ year career in the consumer packaged goods industry, I knew what I loved to do. I just needed to talk about something different. So I took a year sabbatical. I moved to Madrid, and I was working with a couple of other consulting companies to think about how I could leverage the insights and strategy skill that I really enjoy using, but to leverage that in a different industry. And when I returned to the U.S., I fully intended to come back into CPG or media within some form. However, cannabis had been legal within Colorado for about a year. And it was one of the fourth elements of my learning plan to investigate throughout my year sabbatical. And when I went, I decided to take a trip to go to Colorado. I didn't tell anyone because I wasn't telling anyone I was thinking about this. It was 2015. It was very, it was different then, 5 years ago, but a lifetime. And I spent 2 weeks leveraging the same research methodology that we do within the cannabis space, interviewing manufacturers, retailers, observing consumers, and having my own personal experience of fear, even walking into a retail location to buy this product. Literally, I thought I was going to be arrested. I really had that thought. But what I came out of that 2 weeks was that cannabis was the next CPG industry. And what I knew was that at that time, I had a very unique opportunity to create a business model of hard to find consumers that would provide the insights that CPG, healthcare, and cannabis would need in order to develop more effective product innovation and marketing strategy. So it's essentially an existing proven model that I've seen work very well and have leveraged with my own career within the last 20 years. And I saw that opportunity to bring it to cannabis. And no one was looking at it at that point. So I knew that, I could be my own angel investor at that point and fund the development of the company. And that's what kind of kicked it off.
That's great. And Erin, you talked about the similarities between the gaming industry and the cannabis industry, but what made you take the leap into cannabis and make a change?
So, I think it was sort of a number of things. Like, I like to say that when I was in the gaming industry, or that there are a lot of similarities between gaming and cannabis. But in cannabis, I'm working with a better product, I think, than gaming and casinos and slot machines. But it was really being interested in the industry, knowing people that were in it. I had friends that were sort of working in it, friends that had founded nonprofits here to promote women's roles in the cannabis industry. And so I was sort of dipping my toe into it, if you will. And then when there were some license applications opened up in Pennsylvania and Ohio, I really, really wanted to work on those. And the reason is because I thought I could bring a unique perspective, having worked as a gaming regulator and having evaluated license applications sort of on the other side. I thought that I had sort of a different lens to look at applications and asked people if I could help. And it was being at the right place at the right time. I started with Cresco in 2017, basically as like an outside consultant. And by the time that contract ended at the end of 2017, they were a completely different company. And as Carmen just mentioned, like 2015, even though it's like 5 years ago, in cannabis, that's like a lifetime ago. And one of the exciting things is how fast this industry has grown, and that those kinds of opportunities, are still out there because the landscape changes literally every day.
Yeah, absolutely. We've even seen that in the last week with some legislation. And Alice, I'll kick it over to you now to do our next polling question.
Christy, can you put the next one up there? The question is, what role do you have in the industry, or if you're in the industry? And I think you can answer more than one here if it applies. So go ahead and let us know. And while we wait for that to tabulate, you know, you're both women, and you know, you mentioned some nonprofits trying to get women into the cannabis industry. I just would like to have your perspectives on what challenges you think women and people of color are facing trying to get the licensing and be a part of this industry.
Well, I'll kick that off. I think there are unique challenges being a woman within a variety of business environments. I think there are unique challenges, but there are also opportunities. The more that we can diversify the conversation that leads to effective strategy to deploy investment and to achieve business outcomes that not only meets the quantifiable goals, but also benefit the community, are ones that I think that I know that a diverse gender, a diverse audience at the table in terms of gender, as well as experience and as well as racial background, can deliver more effective results over time. And of course, there's a fair amount of research to support that. When I think about my personal experience within this industry, I cannot say that being a woman essentially has prevented me from that. I felt that my gender has prevented me from a series of opportunities. What I can point to is that being an entrepreneur and being a Black woman in this industry, there are some hurdles. And the hurdles that I have seen are particularly unique to being an entrepreneur within this industry and seeking funding. So, as you know, as I've shared with you, I've been in this industry for 5 years. I have been my own angel. I've self-funded the company until this time, and it has been certainly a hard road. And that's just what being an entrepreneur is. So that's just the path. I think that there are unique hurdles for Black women, particularly in securing venture capital funding. So right now, after 5 years, we are actively pursuing investment. This has been a very, very long process, but one that we needed to go through. And I think the timing is right to move forward. So I say this with a high dose of optimism. But what I also realize is that there are less than 50 Black women in the United States that have ever raised more than $1 million. So when we think about a 7-figure number and the fact that I have the opportunity to be the 50th, I want that. That's going to be great. However, the fact that I have the opportunity to be the 50th in the United States of America in 2020 shows that there is a big problem. Because I know that there are a number of fellow entrepreneurs that are white and male and much younger and that can raise 7 figures on an idea. And I've been getting counsel from them because I'm going through the process. So it's one in which, you have to look at obstacles that you can turn into opportunity, but you got to look at the data to say, wow, like seriously, like there's less than 50 people that look like me that have ever done this. And there's so many that have. So that's the one I point out.
And I want to clarify for our audience that Carmen is talking across all industry, not just in cannabis, because when she told me that statistic, I was floored. And I think that as a society, we have to just do better and get money out there. So I'm curious, Erin, what your thoughts are too, and kind of if you have any insight in the recent round of licenses that were intended to go to create more diversity in ownership, but there's also this barrier to entry just as a business person.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I think that those licenses are tied up in litigation and likely will be for the, at least for the immediate future. I think that's one of the amazing things to be in, not just in cannabis, but to be in Illinois in cannabis. Just sort of philosophically, cannabis, I would say, is a relatively progressive industry. And we're at sort of just culturally, I think, at an inflection point. And I think the law in Illinois, that is trying to address some of those wrongs that that the war on drugs has created is a great thing. And it's in the right place. Unfortunately, the devil's in the details, right? So, the unfortunate thing for those applicants, those social equity applicants that are sitting out there sort of waiting to see what the, IDFPR and the Department of Agriculture are going to do with those licenses, it's expensive to apply for a license. I've talked, if I'm ballparking it, usually it's about $500,000 investment just to apply. And you're doing things like holding property, to either open your dispensary or open your craft grow. And those costs get really high really fast. So all of those businesses that are sort of sitting there waiting are essentially losing money. And some of them that may have been sort of viable when they applied for a license, it may not be viable anymore once the litigation gets sorted out.
If I could add to that, when you think about the Restore, Reinvest, and Renew Act in the CRTA is the most advanced legislation that we've seen to support and acknowledge the disparity that has happened for people of color going to jail, and for many white people to come within the industry and make a lot of money. And I applaud the effort, right? Because you think about the previous states, Oregon, California, they were the first ones to really put like this level of, put this detail in there. And as a board member of Chicago Normal, I've been fortunate to really be close to the organization that was so important in working with Staines and Cassidy to get that within the bill. But when you think about the point that you're bringing up, Erin, around like, we have one client in California, social equity applicant, applying within Illinois. This holdup has forced them to lay off more than 80% of their staff. Yeah. So when you think about that and the fact that, so everyone's just like, and I remember it very, very keenly because we were working with this client and then suddenly all the work, all the work is dissipated because the licenses are not here. So when you think about like what these types of holdups mean to companies that are in the weakest capital position to maintain that burn rate over time, it's really distressing. It's really distressing. So I can only hope that those that are making the decisions are going to come out with these, whatever the discrepancies are, release them and let everyone move forward. Because this thing, when you're sitting on that for months and months and you don't know when you're going to be able to actually generate revenue, it can destroy you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully we will see some resolution to that litigation in Illinois soon, because that's paying that mortgage or lease every month is a big nut with no revenue coming in. Speaking of the legal landscape and the industry, some exciting news coming out of the House of Representatives with passing of the MORE Act, the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. It's a step forward, but do you guys really think it's going to pass the Senate?
I don't think it's going to pass the Senate. I mean, I think it's a great step forward and certainly a testament to how the landscape is shifting in a better direction. But I don't think that it's going to pass the Senate.
Yeah, I wholeheartely agree. You can look at, there was like 5 Republicans that voted for that within the House, and I completely applaud, the symbolic step forward, because that means something. That does mean something. However, what I was really distressed about was the language that was added to that bill that prevents anyone with a cannabis misdemeanor or felony to be part of the industry. So that would completely negate. So let's say like Illinois suddenly gets off these licenses and that's part, and you have all of these people that have a license and they have a social equity applicant, which has been adversely impacted by the drug war, primarily a person of color. But then if you have a federal permit that you have to buy that says you can't operate because you have a cannabis drug offense.
Yeah.
When we know that, those that work with with former President Nixon, thank God, on their deathbed, John Ehrlichman admitted that they purposely put cannabis on Schedule 1 so that they could put more Black people in jail and more protesters. But when you think about that, we have the admission of this from the 70s. You can see what this has done, particularly the Black community, and then this language still ends up in the bill. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's like institutionalized racism at its worst. Now they knew it wasn't going to pass, and I do think that there's some good symbolism within this. But just the fact that even landed in there, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it would undo essentially, I think, what all these states are trying to do, what Illinois has tried to do with its legislation, what other states in the Northeast, I think, are going to be trying to do with their adult use legislation as well, which is right those wrongs, and it would completely sort of upend that.
It does seem like we're still a very long way away from a federal scheme of regulation, although I'm sure our federal government's dying to get in there and tax it. One thing that we talk about is a key component of franchising is your trademark. And I'm curious how you think franchising might work in the cannabis industry, especially where you can't get a federal trademark to sell or manufacture, grow marijuana. You can get the attendant goods and services or the CBD, but it's another barrier to entry to a way that could help grow the industry.
Well, we actually have a customer in Colorado that is a cannabis franchisor. And they had to make several changes, and I'm not, I'm certainly not the lawyer at point, but I'm very thankful to be working with Ice Miller on many things. So thank you for your service. But in any case, they've successfully found a way to franchise their banner. So they work with a number of applicants across states, and they apply using that retail banner, and they supply the services. So it's essentially, they are duplicating that 7-Eleven model. They've actually won a number, and they've won a number of awards on it. So I know that there's a way to get around that. I can't explain it fully, but it's. I think you can look at that model within traditional retail and see that it works. So if they're to be able to deliver it would be good for many within the industry.
Yeah, and I think the challenge to some extent with the franchise model, because I agree with Carmen, I think there's a way to make it work. I think some of the challenges lie in sort of the licensing schemes and who exactly has to be sort of vetted as part of acquiring those licenses. If it truly is just sort of like a franchise model where you're licensing, or well, I guess actually it sort of depends on how you set it up, right? Like, and if the company that has the retail banner and is providing the services, are they actually operating the license, or are they getting somebody else to operate the license? It's sort of that stew of license applications that creates the another sort of barrier to entry. But I think there are ways to do it, and I think it's franchising, and at least in sort of in my practice, it's a word that's come up a lot in the last like 12 months. So I can only imagine that, the legal tide is sort of turning, and that you're going to see more of this as the time goes forward.
Great. So it looks like from our last poll, we've got some lawyers, some non-responders, a few in cannabis, C-suite, CPG, and some just here for fun. So Christina, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got another polling question before we get to our next question to Erin and Carmen. But next polling question: how familiar are you with the cannabis industry? Not since my college days, or are you quite familiar? Not familiar at all? So go ahead and fill out that poll. And we've talked a lot about some of these legal hurdles and other financing hurdles and barriers to entry. But as we all saw in early 2020, we had another challenge that hit all of us, and that's COVID. And we're 10 months now into it, and hopefully, we have somewhat of an end in sight with a vaccine, hopefully coming in 2021. But I'm curious to hear from both of you, what challenges have you seen in the industry as a result of COVID, and how has it changed your businesses And Erin, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, so like everybody, COVID has been challenging, but I would say extremely sort of enlightening about sort of what you're able to, or what we as a company have been able to accomplish even remotely. And most of us are working remotely. Our business is very lucky. We were designated an essential business in every state that we're in. Which means that we can keep producing product, we can keep selling product, et cetera. And so that means that we as an industry are not subject to the same sort of like slowdowns and layoffs that other industries and the financial hits that other industries might take. And so I think we've been able to sort of pivot from sort of a corporate perspective in terms of how we do our work. And it really, if anything, I would say as a company, we are busier now, 10 months into this pandemic than we were, in February, March, which is terrific and amazing. I'm thrilled and grateful to be a part of the industry.
That's great. And Carmen, what about you? Have you seen any changes or any challenges as a result of COVID?
Oh, yes. Well, continuing with the, this year has required a tremendous amount of resilience. The business model that we had developed for, our customers within the adult use markets, particularly California and Colorado, that revenue stream was cut to zero because it required a fair level of, in-person communication and distribution, and all of those elements were not ones that we were comfortable with from a health standpoint, clearly within the beginning of March. So as a team, we really had to pivot because the model that we had invested in for 2019 was no longer viable. So again, out of obstacles create opportunity. And we were able to successfully pivot and leverage our golden egg, which is a panel of about 30,000 cannabis patients, consumers, and CBD users that we talk to about their attitudes and behaviors and survey them over time. And we were able at the end of this year, and I have to say, I'm so proud to be able to report this, that we are now partnered with two of the largest global data companies in the world, Nielsen and Ipsos, and we are leveraging that panel and our expertise across CPG and cannabis to deliver data products for CPG, healthcare, and cannabis. Now, I will tell you again what it has taken to when you realize that how you made money in the past is no longer viable and you have to find a new way. And you must do that not only for yourself, but for the people that work for you. And the tremendous challenges that we have faced this year to be able to close this year with these agreements and to be able to launch these pilot products is one that I'm extremely proud of. Now, as I think Erin and you and I were talking yesterday, and I was just really like, I always feel like I'm Paul Bunyan this year. All I do is chop wood. Chop, chop, chop. But so these agreements give us that opportunity to continue chopping, but with the credibility, the access to the clients, and the business model that we take to investors, I'm thrilled to report it. But I'm still chopping wood.
Well, I think the technology and these agreements that you're talking about, I think that brings us to a next question. Alice, do you want to talk about technology changes?
So, this WebEx or even Zoom, we've seen such an advent of technology in this space. We're just curious what kind of technology you've seen in the cannabis space or that you'd like to see either as a result of COVID or just was coming along anyway. And are there any barriers due to federal prohibitions to using that technology in your business? Carmen, you want to go?
We haven't run into that at all. We're very thankful for, the points, Erin, you were bringing up earlier about like how you work as a remote team. Very thankful, for these tools that have been with us for a very long period of time, clearly, right? But to really fully integrate them within our communication stream as a team has allowed us, to foster that development and continuity in a different way, but absolutely required. And of course, from a data product company standpoint, there's no obstacles for us, so we're good.
I'm curious, receiving payments from a cannabis company across state lines, you're not, is there any issue there with that cash flow?
For us, no. We've been fortunate in that, our customers within the industry are able to pay us within, very conventional terms. And I know that they have, clearly they have some obstacles they have to figure out, but they've been able to do it.
Great.
Yeah, and I would add to that as well. We're really lucky since day one have had banking in every state that that we operate in. But certainly banking is one of those things that from Cresco's and other multi-state operators and other operators in this space, banking is one of the most challenging things that we deal with. And certainly, some type of federal relief with respect to banking would be very beneficial.
So we have a question from the audience, from the listeners, and I thought I'd bring it up because it is somewhat technology related. And the question is, how comfortable is the cannabis sector with understanding the need to protect data for its customers?
So I would say, comfortable, I would say definitely, I don't know if comfortable is the right word, but definitely understand the importance of it. And, internally we have data security teams, we have legal people on the legal team that specifically, sort of look at these issues for us and make sure that, from sort of a data protection privacy standpoint, that we are doing everything that we need to do to make sure that we are, as an industry, I would say we have just a heightened level of scrutiny. So when we screw up, it's not just bad for the company, it's bad for the industry. So I would say, again, comfortable, I don't think is really probably the word I would use, but I would say we definitely understand how important it is.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I mean, clearly, Erin is on the inside, but when I think about this from, the HIPAA requirements, when I think about the regulatory elements that are required to protect that data, granted varying state by state, but I think about our customers in Colorado, even leveraging like anonymized customer data to understand the effective development of shopper marketing, communications, promotions, all of that element. The requirements to, release all of that personal information every 24 hours within the state of Colorado, so that we're only really looking at that purchase data and nothing to do with any of the personal information that's checked when one goes into the dispensary. So, definitely, Marijuana Enforcement Division in Colorado, different regulatory requirements clearly by state, but it appears to be highly protected from my perspective.
Yeah, and I would add to that too. I mean, I think it's one of those issues that regulators, or at least my experience has been in the states that we're operational in, regulators understand how important that is, and definitely I think are viewing it through the lens of either protecting patients or protecting consumers, and holding the industry accountable to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
I'm curious, do you think the smaller startups are they aware of these data security privacy issues? And do you see a reckoning coming to the industry?
I guess I don't know if I necessarily see a reckoning. I would say I'm a member of a couple different organizations, including sort of like legal organizations related to, lawyers that practice in this space. And I think there are there are enough, like, I hate to say it, but there are like enough attorneys there that are in this, that are in this industry that understand it and are advising their clients appropriately. Are some people going to run afoul of it? Absolutely. Like, there's no, you know, that's certainly a possibility.
In fact, that question was posed by a data security privacy lawyer.
So I do want to go back to our last polling, because we have our results, and it looks like a lot of people are quite familiar with this industry. So that's great. We've got a good participation from those that are familiar. One thing in talking about, going back to my questions relating to COVID, what keeps you healthy? What keeps you sane, happy during these times that we're all, working remotely and so forth? It looks like we're all from our homes right now. So Carmen, I'll start with you.
I'm kind of relying on the trifecta of a very powerful spiritual practice, because that's been incredibly important. Thank God I started it with that. I think the spiritual, I think it's finding ways to, connect with people in ways that you find safe, because we're human beings, we thrive on this. Clearly, you think about how I was living my life prior to this, before now, I'm pretty much in my house all the time. So, so I think it's a spiritual practice. I think it's finding ways to connect with people and really focusing on what I see as integrated wellness, which is, the physical activity as well as the right foods. And I mean, like everyone, there are some moments where I'm like, I've just had it and I need a Manhattan, but generally I really try to keep it together because I got to keep this right. So yeah, it's really those three.
Absolutely. Erin, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's allowing yourself the space to have bad days, and to understand, I like to, my mantra is you can only control what you can control, right? So like, even the three things that Carmen just mentioned are things that are uniquely within your control. And so, it's for me, it's been giving myself I would say, like, the freedom to not be okay every day and to, be scared like everybody else. I wish I had the secret sauce. I think it is interacting with people, whether it's via Zoom, whether it's like, meeting people outside and like taking a walk. All of those things are things that, sort of are keeping me sane. It obviously gets harder when it gets cold outside.
Yes, I'm very jealous of Carmen. She is down in Sarasota right now.
I try not to rub it, but
see that light coming in, that natural light? That's the brick wall of my neighbor's house. For walks, though, I would like to give a plug to this cool path they built near Addison and Rockwell, and it undulates along the river, and they're going to connect it all the way up to Montrose. So if you're looking for a walk and socially distant space in the city of Chicago, that's a great one, and free parking. And also, for the pandemic, is there anything you want to keep from these times that will remind you how strong you were during these times, or just as a way to commemorate what a weird time it's been?
God, I don't know if I want to commemorate anything. I think one of the things that because we're remote, that we've learned is that it's very easy for your calendar to become, just jam-packed and stacked with meetings from, and calls from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and into the evenings. And I think, from sort of a working perspective, one of the things that I know we do a better job of it now, and I think we'll do a better job even if we return to sort of normal, is the notion that you need to carve out time to actually do work, and put, and block it off on your calendar. Otherwise, you won't get things done. And I think that was initially, when we went remote, I think that was harder for people to do. but we get more comfortable with it. And I think it's, it's important. It's important to not have your day be this from the time you get up to the time you go to bed.
Yeah, I think that some of the practices I've really had to focus on in order to develop the resilience for this time in this year of my life have been gratitude. And the practice of specifically finding time within my day to just kind of like have a rampage of gratitude. I'm thankful that I can breathe. I'm thankful that that my body works. I'm thankful that I have a home. I'm thankful that that I have this breakfast. All of those things. And I think there's so many things that, within the very fast pace of particularly, being on the road all the time, like all the back and forth that many of us were doing until this year. I personally wasn't being intentionally thankful about all of the basic things that I had in my life before I could even find anything to complain about. So I think for me, that's a real big part of this. And I think, to your point, some level of introspection at the end of, this calendar year for me is important to think about that question more deeply, because there are elements here, while incredibly challenging, and I, in no way mitigate that, but there's still some goodness of being alive. So really, meditating on that and focusing on that and figuring out like what those elements are that I bring into the next, the next way that, the next year is going to be important.
Carmen, I'm keeping rampage of gratitude for the future. I think that's a great way to live life. Christina, we also have one more question, which although we talked about the positive side and how to stay positive, what keeps you up at night right now, whether it's in business or societally? Erin?
I'm just laughing because I'm thinking of myself as like an insomniac doom scrolling through Twitter at like 2 a.m. And I mean, I hate to say it, but like, from a business perspective, I'm not sure, we've managed to adjust so well that I don't necessarily think that there's anything sort of related to what's happened in the last year from a business perspective that keeps me up. If anything, every day our organization matures more. We're building out a more robust legal function, a more robust compliance function. I would say, because of one of the big parts of my job is licensing, and making sure that we maintain our licenses in all of the jurisdictions where we operate. Those are kinds of things that keep me up at night. Like, is our calendar up to date? Are we adequately tracking it? Are there better processes that we should be implementing to manage that? And then, in terms of just like, otherwise, like personally, it's just sort of, it's pandemic, it's politics, it's all the stuff that I think keeps everyone else up at night.
Carmen?
I try not to let anything keep myself up at night, because sleep is the biggest part of immunity.
Oh,
However, so I really do try to approach it in that way. However, as millions of Americans, I mean, like, there are some significant challenges that COVID has brought, from a business standpoint, from a personal standpoint, and they're all impacting us, in different ways from a health, economic, financial standpoint. So there are elements of that, yes, I'm definitely concerned about, that I know I need to find solutions. So I would say, yeah, I mean, there are elements of those two components that I do find concerning. And, sometimes I try to limit, the way that I consume news, because I can get caught up in that. And then that puts me in this place of fear, which can prevent action that is required. And that's what's mine to do. But I have to say, like, I really do focus on, what for me is the trifecta to keep myself, within my lane and keeping myself in a place of action in terms of what I can affect within the microcosm of the world in which I am. So yeah, I think it's everything everyone else, it's all of those things. It's just I really have to limit it, and I got to find ways to just keep myself in a place of action.
That's great. That's really good advice. I have a question from the audience too. What are your predictions for 2021, or what are your expectations from a business perspective, from the industry? What do you see 2021 bringing to both of you?
So I mean, I think for Cresco and companies like Cresco, it's adult use in additional states. So you've got states in the Northeast that I think that there's a high likelihood that there will be some changes there. You've got adult use just passed in New Jersey, in Arizona. So for us, I think it means expansion, it means growth. We are definitely bullish on the industry as a whole, and I continue to expand as the year goes on.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think, thinking about it from a cannabis industry standpoint, we may hit 20 billion this year. So that, 41 billion by 2025, and this product's not even federally legal. So that expansion brings significant opportunity and expansion of investment of our current and future clients. So when we think about what that means for Aclara Research, it's successful, beta and piloting and beta of our data products with Nielsen and Ipsos. It is a successful funding round to really scale the business after 5 years of being a self-funded company. And it is really taking this perspective that we have on how we can successfully help our clients build their brands, that I see and that we continually walk toward every day, just keeping in the energy of action.
Oh, that's great. So I have one final question for both of you. If you could do it all over again, your path to where you are currently, would you make any changes?
Oh boy. I certainly try not to think about like what I would do differently, and what decisions I might make differently. I'm very happy and grateful to be in the industry. I think I like to say it's the best law job I've ever had, because it touches on so many different things, so many, every day, and because it's changing. And we're really, it's not like there's a body of case law in cannabis. And it's not like there's, tons of interpretations on what these regulations and what these laws mean. And that's really exciting. I mean, I think if anything, the one thing I would change is I wish I'd been sort of a little bit, maybe a little less risk averse in 2014, 2015 in Illinois, when this industry really was starting to sort of take shape, because I think there were opportunities there. And I wish I'd been sort of more visionary like Carmen, to be able to look at it and recognize sort of what a game changer cannabis was going to be.
What about you, Carmen?
I don't know. It's as I listen to that question, there have been some very, very challenging paths that I've been through in the last 5 years. So as I think about what you've asked, I'm like, God, I wish I didn't have to go through all that. Just erase all that. Can it just be easier? Can it just be easier? But when I look at, all the experiences across my life, like they've all served to bring me to a very to a place of advantage. And that advantage has not always been seen as I was walking the path of the journey. So what I have to know is, despite tremendous obstacles that I've seen, that I know that they're preparing me for a place that I see, that I know that we're getting to, and it's going to be better than I've even thought it was going to be. So I'm just going to say it's working out.
That's great.
Great. Well, a very hearty thank you to you both. I am very thankful and express gratitude. This has been such a dynamic discussion, and I hope everybody else enjoyed it. And now is the time for our drawing. Let me share my screen with you all first. Pull this up. So, what? Share. So, Watts of Love is a organization, and this is their website, wattsoflove.org, Watts being W-A-T-T-S, that there's people who have no electricity in this world, and a lot of people burn kerosene, which is very dangerous and also very costly. So by donating these solar lights, you create like a micro economy for people, as well as saving them the money that they had spent on kerosene and their health. So this is the buy one, get one campaign for December that they're doing. And Danny Laughlin of FGMK, you are a lucky winner. Kristen Bowser will be in touch about how to collect your prize, and the donation will be in your name to Watts of Love. So thanks again, everyone. I did want to, I forgot one thing, is that Watts of Love is based in Downers Grove, and their tech partner is Molex out in the western suburb, and has helped them develop this technology. So it's a very Illinois-based company and endeavor. And I wanted to invite you all to January 28th is our next Rise. It's going to be all things real estate. We have Dean Marks of Sterling Bay and Matt Kelly of JBG Smith, who is a relation. Sterling Bay, as you know, is developing Lincoln Yards, and JBG Smith is developing National Landing in Virginia, which is also known as HQ2 for Amazon. So we look forward to that and hope you can all join us. Carmen or Erin, if you wanted to say anything in closing, or Christina, let us know.
Well, and I just want to thank Erin and Carmen for joining us today. This was a great conversation, and it's been great getting to know both of you and to learning your stories and giving some great advice to us and the listeners.
Thanks so much for having me.
Likewise, appreciate the opportunity.
And audience, if you have any more questions, feel free to type them in. Otherwise, we have risen. So
Enjoy your coffee.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Till next time. Thank you, Carmen and Erin.